It is 4:30 a.m., 15,000 feet over the Donetsk region. Ghost, a Ukrainian MiG-29 pilot, watches his radar warning receiver turn blood red as a Russian Pantsir S-2 locks onto his cockpit. He is carrying 4 hammer bombs. They are pulsing with a secret heartbeat, utilizing advanced navigation tech reverse engineered from a Russian Kinzhal missile Ukraine secured in a previous operation. Do you remember the MiG-31 that Russia lost due to betrayal within its ranks? This is the direct result of that theft of the century. This is Ghost's decisive moment. If he releases too early, this $500 million trap fails. If he waits 10 seconds too long, he becomes a fireball in the sky. Success or catastrophe now depends on a 4-second window of pure physics. To understand why this specific bridge is about to become the most expensive piece of real estate in the Donetsk region, you have to look at Russia's Great Pokrovsk Plan. For months, this bridge was just a quiet logistics vein, a place where trucks moved food and fuel. But as Moscow prepared for their decisive push, they turned this area into a fortress. They packed it with significant air defense. But here's the detail that Russian intelligence missed. Through satellite feeds and local partisan eyes, Kyiv watched every truck and every missile battery arrive. Now, if you were the commander of this mission, would you have struck the first Book M3 that rolled in? Most people would say yes. Take the points and run. But the SBU and Ukrainian military intelligence are playing a much longer game. They let the Russians get comfortable. The Russians, feeling invincible in their fortress, finally brought in the crown jewels. This included a convoy carrying the brand new Buk M3 Telars and the Pantsir S-2 upgrades. This was the last mile delivery for the Pokrovsk offensive. By January 4th, the bridge was a 200-foot bottleneck, packed with nearly $500 million in hardware. Russia thought they were gathering their fist for a knockout blow. Ukraine, however, saw something different. They saw a target that was physically unable to move, trapped by its own size and the very geography it relied on for protection. The stage is set. It is 4 a.m. at a secluded, reinforced tarmac strip somewhere in eastern Ukraine. Ghost throttles up his MiG-29 Mu-1. This isn't the aging Soviet relic you would find in a museum.
Copy that.
It is a Frankenfighter. It is a digital predator rebuilt for the 21st century. Hanging under its wings are 4 AASM-250 hammer bombs. Each of these 550-pound glide kits can travel 43 miles. Now, effectively turning Ghost into a long-range sniper from 15,000 feet. However, the real magic isn't the French steel. 2 of them have the custom-coded K-Logic firmware Ukraine installed after dissecting that stolen Kinzhal. They have integrated a military-grade laser ring gyroscope. This gives these bombs a sense of direction so precise, they do not even need a GPS signal to find their target. While Ghost climbs into the freezing darkness, the first stage of the trap is already closing near Pokrovsk. The target is a 200-foot concrete bridge over a local ravine. Right now, a $500 million convoy is rolling across it. We are talking about 2 Buk M3 Telars, the absolute crown jewels of Russian air defense. They are guarded by a Pantsir S-2, a mobile electronic warfare vehicle, and a truck overloaded with 9 M317M missiles. To Moscow's commanders, this is a no-fly zone on wheels. To Ukraine, it is just a target-rich environment, jammed into a narrow bottleneck. Surprisingly, the silence is broken by the buzzing of 12 Ukrainian FPV drones. They swarm the bridge. The Pantsir S-2 roars, its 30mm cannons vaporizing 5 of them in midair. The Russian crew is likely cheering, but they have already fallen for the bait. These drones are not for destruction, they are for congestion. While the Russians play target practice, 3 drones slip through. One shreds the lead vehicle's front tire. Another disables the rear truck's engine housing. There are no fireballs, just thick smoke and shredded rubber. Panic hits the convoy. The drivers slam on their brakes, transforming a $500 million fortress into a 200-foot parking lot. The trap is locked. The bouncer is busy swatting flies while the real heavy hitter is already on the way. In an instant, the convoy is immobilized. A few more drones miss their targets entirely, splashing harmlessly into the ravine or hitting the dirt. But it does not matter. Ukraine has forced Russia's most advanced mobile air defense to become a stationary target. To the Russian commander on the ground, this looks like a failed Ukrainian nuisance attack. To Ghost, currently banking his MiG-29 into the final attack vector. It is the green light. Tragically, for the Russian garrison, their doctrine is rigid. The convoy grinds to a halt to engage the drones, fulfilling Ukraine's primary objective. Now it is Ghost's turn. He has successfully used an F-16 to destroy the Kerch Bridge in the past, but with this upgraded MiG-29, the mission is more dramatic than ever. Almost immediately, Ghost is screaming across the terrain at 500 knots, hugging the tree line at a terrifying 200 feet. This is Nap of the Earth flying, using the hills and forests as a physical shield against the Russian radar network. But the mission parameters demand altitude for the glide bombs to catch the air. Ghost pulls back on the stick. The MiG-29's nose points to the stars, popping up at 25 miles out. Instantly, his cockpit transforms into a chaotic display of warning lights. The SPO-15 radar warning receiver doesn't just chirp, it screams a continuous, violent tone. The Pantsir S2 on the bridge has achieved a hard lock. On Ghost's heads-up display, a red box pulses around the target. He is now staring directly into the barrel of a $500 million shotgun. Down on the bridge, the Russian commander isn't taking any chances. He barks a command, and the Zhitel and Repellent 1 mobile EW systems kick into overdrive. They flood the atmosphere with electronic warfare, creating an electromagnetic dome so thick it effectively tries to rewrite reality. To any observer, it looks like Ghost is walking into a nightmare. His sensors are flickering, his location is compromised, and the Pantsir is seconds away from sending a Mach 3 missile through his canopy. It looks like game over. But exactly as the Russian operator's finger hovers over the launch button, the Ghost Swarm arrives. From a completely different vector, 8 AQ-400 Scythe drones scream toward the bridge. These are not your average drones. They are equipped with Lundberg lenses, small devices that trick a radar into thinking a tiny drone has the signature of a massive B-52 bomber. Suddenly, the Russian radar screens don't just show a flicker, they explode with phantom targets. To the Russian operators, it looks like a massive Ukrainian air wing has appeared out of thin air. They panic. The radar network goes completely white for 30 agonizing seconds as the Scythe's active jamming pods target the Pantsir's X-band frequency. It is total sensory overload. The Russian crew, now in a state of absolute hysteria, begins dumping everything they have into the empty sky. Pantsir missiles streak into the clouds, chasing Ghosts. The 30mm guns roar, their barrels glowing cherry red as they chew through 40% of their ammunition in seconds. They manage to knock down 6 of the decoys on the bridge. The soldiers are cheering and punching the air, screaming that they neutralized the swarm. They think they have just saved the day. They have no idea that those 30 seconds of victory were the only window Ghost needed. While the Russians were busy celebrating over a pile of cheap plastic and fiberglass, Ghost was flying in the only quiet pocket of the sky. In that moment of total Russian blindness, he pickles the bombs. As the swarm of decoys finally begins to fade from the radar, the Russian Pantsir S2 operators are in a state of hyper alert. Their nerves are frayed, but their confidence is peaking. Ghost, however, isn't done. From the edge of the engagement zone, he releases the first 2 AASM hammers, but these aren't the high-tech hybrids. These are stock French models. Expensive, yes, but without the Kinzhal heartbeat. The Russian commander on the bridge isn't taking any chances. He screams into his headset, and the Zhitel EW system cranks its power to 110%. It floods the 1,575 MHz GPS frequency with so much noise that it is like trying to hear a whisper inside a jet engine. Suddenly, a streak of white smoke erupts from the Pantsir vehicle. They have launched a 57 E6 missile directly at Ghost. Inside the cockpit, the SPO-15 warning receiver shifts from a chirp to a continuous piercing wail. Missile inbound, 8 seconds to impact. Ghost doesn't panic. He yanks the stick into his gut, executing a brutal 9G brake turn that feels like an elephant is standing on his chest. He dives back toward the deck. The Russian missile screams past his canopy and detonates harmlessly in a cloud of chaff. He is safe, but the Russians think they have won. They watch their monitors as the 2 Ukrainian bombs enter the electromagnetic storm. Without their GPS eyes, the bombs begin to drift. They lose their trajectory, tumbling through the air, and finally impact an empty field 300 feet away from the bridge. A massive plume of dirt erupts, but there is zero damage. On the bridge, the Russian soldiers are doubled over in laughter. Their commander likely just sent a victory update to Moscow, claiming Ukrainian glide bombs are officially scrap metal. To any observer, this looks like a humiliating $1 million failure. You might be thinking, did Ukraine just waste 2 of their best weapons on a patch of mud? But here is the plot twist. That failure was actually a diagnostic strike. Ukraine didn't send those bombs to hit the bridge. They sent them as probes. By watching exactly how those 2 bombs drifted and recording the precise moment they lost their signal, Ukrainian signals intelligence teams mapped the entire Russian EW defense. It is like poking an invisible fence with a stick, just to see where the sparks fly. The Russians, in their arrogance, stayed on the same jamming frequency. They didn't change their pattern because they thought their shield was impenetrable. They effectively showed Ukraine exactly where the frequency gap was.
Both payloads have lost
a tiny, unprotected lane in the electromagnetic spectrum. Ghost has already disappeared back into the terrain, but he isn't retreating. He is looping back for the second wave. He now knows exactly where the Russian radar is looking, and more importantly, exactly where it is blind. The laughter on the bridge is about to be silenced by the cold, hard logic of physics. While the Russian commander is busy mocking Ukrainian technology, Ghost is banking his MiG-29 back into the kill zone. He isn't flying on hope anymore. He is flying on data. Those first 2 failed bombs were essentially a high-speed survey team. They mapped every frequency, every pulse, and every blind spot in the Russian electromagnetic dome. Ghost pushes the throttles to full afterburner. The twin RD-33 engines roar, shoving him toward the sky. He needs altitude, and he needs it now. 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 feet. He is sticking his head directly into the hornet's nest. On the bridge, the Pantsir S2 radar screen screams to life. The operator is stunned. The target is back. This time, the Russians don't just jam. They launch a saturation volley. 357 E-6 missiles streak off the rails, leaving white scars against the dark sky. They are closing the distance at Mach 3. Inside the cockpit, the SPO-15 is a wall of sound. Ghost's world has shrunk to a 4-second window. His breathing is heavy, and his vision narrows under the 7G load as he levels out for the release. This is the moment where the stolen Kinzhal Heartbeat takes over. The 2 remaining AAS-MK bombs are released. Ghost feels the airframe lighten as the 550-pound Predators drop away. Tragically for the Russians, these bombs don't care about GPS jamming. Inside their casings, the laser ring gyros, the very same tech that guides Russia's invincible Kinzhal, are now pulsing with surgical precision. They aren't looking for a satellite signal. They are calculating their own reality based on the diagnostic data Ghost just fed them. It is like a world-class sprinter running a race blindfolded because he has already memorized every inch of the track. Bombs away, aggressing. Ghost grunts through the G-force. He doesn't wait to watch. He rolls the MiG inverted and pulls into a violent split S, diving toward the deck while pumping out a cloud of flares and chaff. The 3 Russian missiles lose their lock in the clutter, detonating a mile behind him. Ghost is screaming back toward friendly lines, weaving between power lines at 500 knots, his heart hammering against his ribs. On the bridge, the Russian commander sees the MiG-29 dive away and assumes another victory. He screams insults at the sky, calling the pilot a coward. His crew is laughing, totally unaware that the 2 hammers are currently at their terminal velocity. They are gliding through the very blind lane the Russians left wide open. The Russian commander is still shouting, but the atmosphere on the bridge suddenly changes. The laughter stops. The air feels heavy with the static of incoming kinetic energy. The 2 AAS-MK bombs are now in their terminal dive, screaming down at Mach 1.5. Guided by the stolen Kinzhal gyros, they are threading the needle through the Russian jamming as if it weren't even there. In a moment of pure panicked realization, the Buk M3 radar operator screams, "Target inbound, close range." The Russian defense enters a state of surgical desperation. The Buk M3 Telar, the pride of Moscow's air defense, tilts its massive rack of missiles upward. It is too late for a standard intercept. They are trying to hit a supersonic dart with a massive missile at point-blank range. The Buk M3 fires. Two 9 M317M missiles roar off the rails, their rocket motors lighting up the bridge like a second sun. But here's where the physics of the bottleneck becomes a death sentence. The first AASMK slams directly into the Buk M3 ammunition truck parked in the center of the bridge. It triggers a secondary event. 24 Russian missiles, each packed with high-grade propellant and warheads, detonate simultaneously. The result is a fireball so massive, it effectively creates its own weather system. The overpressure wave is so violent that it literally lifts the 35-ton Pantsir S2 vehicle 2 feet off the concrete. The second Buk M3 Teller, caught in the middle of this hellscape, tries to fire its own interceptor in a final act of suicidal defense. But the shockwave from the first explosion has already shattered its hydraulic stabilization. As the missile leaves the rail, the entire vehicle is rocked by the blast. Its internal sensors are scrambled by the massive electromagnetic and physical interference. In a terrifying display of technological karma, the missile loops back in a violent 180-degree arc, diving straight through the roof of the Russian command and control vehicle. Amidst this chaos, the second AASMK bomb finds its mark with surgical indifference. The bomb's delayed action fuse allows it to penetrate 4 feet into the reinforced concrete before detonating. The explosion creates a structural resonance effect. Combined with the weight of the burning convoy and the secondary explosions from the ammo truck, the concrete simply ceases to be a solid. For 45 agonizing seconds, the 200-foot span groans with the sound of twisting steel that can be heard for miles. Then, it simply vanishes into the ravine. The $500 million Russian convoy is gone. The Buk M3S, the Pantsir S2, and the elite EW systems are now just a pile of smoldering, structurally compromised scrap metal at the bottom of a ditch. Ghost is already miles away, crossing back into safe airspace. But the return to sender package has been delivered in full. Ukraine didn't just break a bridge, they broke the spine of the Pokrovsk offensive. By using Russia's own Kinzhal technology to bypass Russia's best defense, Ukraine has achieved a strategic ROI that is unprecedented. Moscow wanted a decisive push. Instead, they got a $500 million lesson on why you should never build a fortress on a bottleneck. So tell me, what was the bigger failure? Grouping all those assets on a single bridge? Or trusting a missile that was invincible until Ukraine decided to use its brain against its creator? Comment in the section below, and I will see you at the next trap.